haven't really heard anyone talk about this before, and I'm really finding that it's one of the most important factors in having a safe flight. So a few months ago, I departed on a cross-country flight to go sync up with some of my friends and their airplanes and fly out to northwestern Arkansas for a really fun weekend of flying and fishing. And it was kind of a hectic morning getting out of town. Anyone with small kids can definitely relate to that. And so shortly after takeoff, as I was departing, I realized I was way behind the airplane. I just felt kind of sluggish and rusty, even though I wasn't rusty at all. I just didn't really feel on my A game. And I think if we're being honest, all of us have those kinds of flights where we're just not as sharp as we want to be. And it's not because of any medication or alcohol or anything like that. It's just like some days you're just kind of mentally foggy. And I remember as I was leaning, I'm twisting the mixture knob in case you're like, what is he doing with his hand? I remember like vividly, I was leaning out the mixture and I was staring at the fuel flow and everything. And it just kind of like, my brain just took a second to compute what I was even doing. And as I kept pushing onward, I realized that I was thinking about, problems that I was solving at work. I was thinking about things that are getting fixed on the house, thinking about things I've been talking about with my wife that morning or something, or family plans, or you name it. It was all, I mean, my brain was very active, but it was active on all the things outside of the airplane. It wasn't active on the actual flight. So I had to kind of snap out of it and draw a line for myself and say, look, all those things are important. I know all those things. Here are my thought bubbles. All of those things are important, but literally the flight is the most important thing here. And later that day, I reflected on, gosh, why did I have such a rough start to that otherwise pretty routine flight? And it occurred to me that not only was getting out of the house a little hectic that morning and fighting traffic hectic, but I realized that I used the entire 25-minute drive to the airport, finally by myself in the car, to just process the things of the week, all the distractions that I just mentioned. My brain just went 100 miles an hour just trying to use that time efficiently or something in the car. And what I wasn't doing was mentally preparing for the flight. And I think this is so hard to do once you get your license, and particularly once you own an airplane. It's really hard to make yourself focus on the flight because it's so routine. Unless the weather is like really, really bad or something, most flights you could do in your sleep. And you've done it so many times and you know exactly how you can show up to the airport, get in the airplane and go. And because of that, I think it can take some of our edge, some of our sharpness away from the preparation of the flight. And so I've really, really found that it's so helpful. I've been doing this lately and I'd love to hear your comments on it if you do something similar. It's really helpful to pick a physical landmark, a physical check mark on your drive to the airport that's going to be the trigger for starting this transition of saying, okay, everything I was just thinking about is now behind me and now I'm just focused on the flight. It could be a particular highway exit, it could be a stop sign, it could be a stoplight, it could be whatever. But pick what it's going to be, and then I've personally been running through these 4 things once I hit that check mark. The first thing is I visualize the pre-flight, and I know we've all done this hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of times, but because of that, it's all the more important to make sure we stay mentally sharp and still go through the mental preps for this. So I tell myself we're gonna have a really good pre-flight. I briefly visualize walking around and inspecting the airplane, checking the fuel, checking the oil, etc., and being intentional about it, really looking at the airplane and not just rushing through it like I've done it 1,000 times. Secondly, even though I feel pretty confident on the radio, I will physically speak out the first few transmissions I'm going to make to ground control. I might even read back a hypothetical clearance that I make up for myself, just to kind of start to flip in your brain and say, I am transitioning here to a flight, and these transmissions that I'm making, the things I'm gonna hear myself say, are part of that mental transition into pilot mode. And thirdly, I'll visualize the entire takeoff and departure. I'll visualize my power settings and my procedures and the checklist, just so that by the time I do it for real in the cockpit, that's not like the first time I've even thought about it all day. And fourthly, if the weather is bad in any way, it's really gusty, maybe it's low IFR, anything like that, I will really try to spend some of the drive listening to the live ATC app. As a lot of airports, it probably has your home airport or one nearby where you can start to hear what the chatter is. Are people really reporting a lot of wind shear? Are people reporting that the cloud bases are better or worse than what the ATIS is saying?
Citation 3 Hotel Papa, contact reach departure, good day. Departure 3 Hotel Papa Suit.
You can start to get an idea of what the chatter is. You're starting to hear the environment that you're about to be in, kind of signals to your brain, okay, hey, let's transition away from the normal things I'm doing today and let's get into pilot mode. Now, I tried to come up with an acronym for this, but it came out like something not even remotely resembling English. So if you have an idea, you can leave it down for me in the comments. But the way that I really just try to remember it is just think through it chronologically. Now, one more thing about this topic is that you've heard me say before that safety slips in small stages. I really, really believe that. And I've been learning the hard way that the first piece of safety or piece or entity, I don't know what the entity of safety would be, but the first component of safety slipping happens before you even get to the airport. And I've been learning that the hard way, that mental prep is so important. So this is what I want to leave you with, is that you really have to protect this time. And what I mean by that is that you're going to be tempted to still be distracted. You're going to hear this, oh, hey, that's helpful, let me try that. And then you're going to forget, or you're going to say, oh yeah, but I was on a conference call and the call went long and here I am in front of the hangar, so let's just get up and go. I really think you need to protect this time. Take another lap around the airport to say, yeah, let me finish my call. Okay, now let me get another 5 minutes in just devoted to mental prep. And I think it's gonna make such a big difference for your flights. It really has for me. And so this is something I've learned the hard way. I've also learned some other things the hard way that I put in the video on the screen, not to say, look at me, but really just to try to take something that was, mistakes I've made and then try to turn it into something that can help other people. And so I'll see you over in that video.